Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Indeed, all praises for Allah. We praise Him, seek His assistance, and seek His forgiveness. We seek refuge in Allah from the evil promptings of our souls and from our evil actions. Whosoever Allah guides, none can misguide, and whosoever Allah leaves to stray, none can guide right. I testify that none has the right to be worshipped except Allah alone, having no partner. And I testify that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam is his slave and his messenger. Inshallah, we are going to start our names and attributes of Allah Jalla wa Ala, and may Allah accept. Hopefully, inshallah, we will start speaking about Allah's most beautiful names and attributes, where we are going to say that first of all we have to revise our previous data. We have to revise our previous data. I want you to be with me a bit, where I want to, as we said, simplify the issue of Islam as much as possible to benefit and to gain the treasure which if you have knowledge about it, you will very much honored and praised from Allah, and you will feel contentment, and you will gain a lot of advantages. As you know, sisters, that this branch, which is Allah's most beautiful names and attributes, these are the highest rank a person or a student studying علوم شرعية can gain. If he is on the line by knowing the most beautiful names of Allah Jalla wa Ala and the attributes, he will surely be of those very gained and honored both in dunya and in hereafter. Now, sisters, Ibn al-Qayyim, rahmatullah alayh, Ibn al-Qayyim, rahmatullah alayh, he said some words. From these words, we can benefit a lot. One of the items he said the knowledge about Allah's most beautiful names and attributes, it is in stages. It's considered stages. He said that to know about Allah's most beautiful names and attributes, it is stages, and these stages are number one, counting. And counting means to say that Allah's most beautiful names are the most hearing, the most seeing, the bestower, the king, like that. To start counting, just counting. To start counting. So I think it is so I think it is a very simplified thing for you just to count. Allah's most beautiful names are, you start counting, finding a way to remember and remind yourself by any schedule. I mean, just to be able to know the names of Allah's beautiful names and attributes. This is the first, is counting. Counting by both the word itself and the counting. I mean, for example, if you are reading your ordinary, you are reading your ordinary word. I mean, what are you planning for yourself to read daily from the Quran? And then put in yourself, as I said to you, we want to make a strategy or a plot or something, a deal between me and myself to gain something till these 10 days ended. So actually they are about to come, it's okay. So nothing is going to remain, just the 10 days themselves. Nothing is going to remain, just the 10 days themselves. So Ibn al-Qayyim is saying that the counting of Allah's beautiful names and attributes are three categories. These three categories started by a very easy one, number one, which is just counting. You say to yourself that I'll start count at least the 99 names mentioned in the hadith, because the hadith, he just mentioned that Allah Jalla wa Ala has 99 most beautiful names, which if you are able to count, you will gain a lot of happiness both in here and hereafter. So the first stage is in order to say that you start studying or knowing about Allah's beautiful names and attributes. Number one, start counting by names and by numbers. By names and by counting. So again, please, the first category, which is the least, is to count the names of Allah by enumeration. Start enumerating the maximum number you know about Allah's most beautiful names and attributes. So number one is to start reminding yourself that Allah has most beautiful names. These are 1, 2, 3 until you finish. You will find yourself know, inshallah, at least 50. At least 50. Because you are going to sit and analyze. This is one issue, and the other issue is by your word you are daily doing, by doing this, you will fulfill the first item, which is just counting. It's okay, sister? I said that Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayh said that there are three stages for being oriented by Allah most beautiful names and attributes. The first one is just enumeration. The first one is just enumeration. You start counting. The first one is enumeration. So you just count the names, saying that Allah, most beautiful names. I'll try to remind myself by counting as much as possible. I can count these names you mentioned, even if you are in bed or preparing anything. Inshallah, you will be rewarded. So just enumeration, even if you are sleeping at bed, inshallah, you will be rewarded. And then this is number one. Number one, just enumeration. Number one is just enumeration. And then number two, understanding the meanings and the feedback of that meanings. I mean, to start understanding name by name. The second stage is trying to understand name by name. So you start taking the name and search about the meaning. Number two, understanding the meaning. For example, if you say Allah, most beautiful name, the most hearing. Number two is to understand the meaning. For example, you said the most hearing is one of Allah's most beautiful names. This means that Allah can hear. And then you can add confirmation either from authentic Sunnah or from the Quran itself. إنه سميع بصير. So it came in many, it comes in many verses, proof that Allah can hear. So the second is to understand the meaning of the second is to understand the meaning of the name and what this name mean. I mean the reflection of this name. I mean, for example, let us say the most hearing, as-Sami'. If I am oriented that Allah is the most hearing, and it is proved by data that Allah is the most hearing, so I should put that into consideration. If I know that Allah Jalla wa Ala is the most hearing, I should not say things bad that be ashamed from Allah to say it or to do it, because He is the most hearing and the most seeing, like that. This is number two. This is the number two. So again, in order to say it again and again. We have said that Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayh, Ibn al-Qayyim rahmatullah alayh, he said that to know Allah, most beautiful names and attributes, this means stages. The first stage is counting, to start counting the names one by one. The second stage is being oriented by the meaning. So try to understand it. You are trying to understand the meaning of the name. As As-Sami', the most hearing, so you are going to say to yourself, As-Sami', most hearing, this means that Allah can hear. So it should be reflected in your behavior that you are oriented that Allah is the most hearing. So you will be ashamed to say bad things which you know very well Allah dislike. From where you decided to do that? Because I am well oriented and well known to me that Allah is the most hearing. So He is going to hear the most far voice, the most low voice, the voice of all creatures, the voice of all speak at the same time, of different languages, at different places, with multiple talks. Allah Jalla wa Ala is going to hear. Allah Jalla wa Ala is going to hear. This is the second category. Again, sisters, if you are oriented by Allah name, it should be reflected on your behavior. If you are oriented that Allah, for example, the most hearing, you should be ashamed not to say words or do deeds heard by Allah and He dislike. You got it, sisters? This is the meaning of second stage. Second stage is not only to enumerate the names, but also to understand the meaning and be oriented and focusing about your deeds concerning this name. Are you, for example, if you are dealing with His name As-Sami', the most hearing, have you kept yourself away from doing bad deeds that Allah can hear from you and be angry from you? This is the answer of number 2. Number 2 is understanding the name and the reflection of that name on you, how to behave towards it, towards that name. It's okay? Number 3, asking Allah by that name. So number 1, just enumeration. Number 2, orientation by the meaning. General orientation by the meaning. So that if I am oriented by the name, it will be reflected on my behavior. If I am oriented, if I am knowing that Allah one of his names is the watcher, who can watch you all the time. Allah Jalla wa Ala can watch you, and every minute action you are doing and behaving, Allah is going to hear, Allah is going to watch, Allah is going to calculate. So it surely should be reflected on you changing of the behavior if you are oriented that you are watched by Allah, or heard by Allah, or seen by Allah. Number 3 is supplication by. Supplication by. Into the supplication is 2 types of supplication to Allah. The first is praising and worshipping Allah by, and number 2, the asking need you ask it. Again, number 3 is to supplicate by that name, by this name or these names. Supplication. And the supplication, it is 2 categories or 2 forms. The first is praising Allah to express your reality as a slave, your real slavery nature. So you are supplying yourself with the fact that you cannot call Allah, I want. There is ethics. There is ethics. These ethics, the very primitive ethics, is to show grandiosity to your Lord Allah Jalla wa Ala, is to be happy that you are reading His book, because you will be more and more learned about. So you have to deal with the issue by your heart and not by your eyes or other else. This is the meaning of dua, asking Allah by His names. It means, for example, you are quite sure that Allah heard bad thing you did. You say it, forgetting that Allah is the watcher. Suppose that. What will be the net result? The net result is that you know that Allah is Al-Wahhab, Al-Sami', Al-Basir, whatever the name is of His 99 names. Number 1, you are going to calculate the names. Number 2, you will stand name by name, trying as much as possible to say to yourself, there is 3 categories I should deal with the most beautiful names and attributes. What are these 3 categories? Number 1, I have to count them. Number 2, understanding the meaning and the requisite of that meaning. And number 2 is asking Allah through dealing with supplication. I mean, you take the name and you are worshipping Allah by that name. For example, in order to make it somewhat easier for you, for example, if you, let me remind myself. Yeah, suppose you do a sin and you want Allah to forgive you. So you are going to supplicate by other than, you try to supplicate by other than that name in order to understand that name. I'll tell you how. For example, Allah Jalla wa Ala, the most hearing. So you want something from Allah as to protect you from diseases, or to ask Allah by that name. So you will start praising Allah first and then asking Him by that name. For example, oh, most forgiving, forgive me. If you are saying that, this means that you ask Him by His name, the most forgiving, to forgive you, because you are having a lot of daily problems with your children, and until they grow and they enter the university, still they are highly affecting you. So you have to ask Allah by dua al-mas'ala your needs, and your needs are maximum. Understand, you sisters? So we just mentioned that the stages of knowing Allah's most beautiful names and attributes is, number one, counting the words or the names. Just counting as you see. And then this is just counting. Number two, you start understanding the meaning and the requisite for that meaning. It will be reflected on me. So you have to be oriented by the importance of Allah's most beautiful names and attributes. I'll stop here, sisters. Inshallah, hopefully Allah will benefit us more than that. جزاكم الله خيرا. بارك الله فيكم. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.